We will open the Northwest Regional ESD Board meeting for September 11th, 2024. And we will open with first roll call by the Board Secretary. And you will answer here, if you're here. Here. Here.
Paul, you were just called for a roll call.
Okay, thanks. I couldn't hear that. Yeah, here. Thanks, Dan.
All right, thank you. And we will start off this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. So would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Land acknowledgement. And we'll start off with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that we gather as the Northwest Regional ESD on traditional lands of the Chinook, Clatskanie, Clatsop, Nehalem, Kalapuya, Siletz, and Tillamook peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. Are there any changes or revisions to tonight's agenda?
Madam Chair, there are no revisions from the administration.
Any board members? All right. With that, we'll start off with the superintendent's report. Superintendent?
All right. Well, good to see everybody. Welcome. We're off. It's a new school year. And as our board knows, at the ESD, that means a lot of different things. I would say 40% of our staff are in early learning and they go year round. And have a very robust summer programming. We do migrant programming all summer. Of course, we have a big operational team that works all summer, but our school teachers came back and we've been doing a lot of welcome back activities, et cetera. And for the first time in 5 years since the pandemic, we had all of our staff and colleagues come together from the four corners of our region, over 20 school districts, 4 counties, all together. And we had, we can't fit anywhere. So if Forest Grove, might want to give us their high school next year, I'll talk to, but we don't have that kind of facility at the ESD. And so we were at a conference center and it was a really good day. It was really exciting to have folks together. The energy was really high. It was really good. And the feedback was really excellent, especially around the professional development opportunities that people had. We had over 15 sessions that were really obviously well attended, but like the feedback was just excellent, ranging from embedding equity and culturally relevant practices in your classroom or your professional practice to like, how does ESD funding work? Because it's really complicated and sometimes our staff really don't know. I mean, most people really don't know how the ESD funding works. And so we had a really wide range of things for our staff to participate in. It was really, really fun. We also do this thing called celebrating our years of service, folks, and your board chair, Becky Tinchuk, did a really nice, really good job recognizing our folks. Really thank you for being there and representing the board. One of the teachers I wrote about here in our board report. One of our teachers is a 30-year vet at the ESD, Mariah Radcliffe, and she is in our deaf, hard of hearing program, and she got to address our staff, and I just thought it was beautiful. And I don't think there was really a dry eye in the place, or if there were, probably in the wrong profession. It was really awesome. She talked about just the joy of her life in teaching and the impacts that she gets to make on kids in her community, and it's just very humble and a humbling thing to listen to. I was really just so impressed. I do want to point out and thank a couple of people in the room because it's a really big undertaking. when you have that kind of diversity in a place. And Megan McCarter is here, Dr. McCarter, and Stacy Rager, who's here, and John Peplinski, who's here, and Kathy Jensen, the executive directors who got all of their teammates to participate in creating content. Jordan did a really good job, as I said, on the finance stuff, and of course our HR team. So it was a all hands on deck experience. It was really fun, and we're off. So we're off to a really good start. Except for, in some of our programs where the lights go out because a construction crew outside the school decided to dig where they weren't supposed to. So we did have some challenges on our second day of school at Cascade Pacific Academy, and the power went out. And as you all know from my communications, we had to send kids home on the second day. But we're back up and running, and things are going well out in our schools. Before I forget, I do want to just mention we are here in Forest Grove School District. They have a new superintendent, Suzanne West. I wanted to welcome Suzanne to our region. Really look forward to working with Dr. West. Came to us to our region from Salem Kaiser, but it's kind of a return because she was in Sherwood not too long ago. So welcome and thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, just a couple of pieces from me, more on the business side. So as you know, EIECSE is going to look different this year. It's already looking different. After we fought hard throughout the legislative session for adequate funding levels, we came up short. Just as a reminder, we did get some more money, and it staved off the most draconian aspects of reductions for our program and our staff. But we had really dug into a different model of serving kids more in their natural habitat, so to speak, like in their homes and in community centers. And that put a lot of pressure on our staff to be spread across our 4-county region rather than have kids come to a central place. So while we are still committed to inclusion, that's starting to look a little different because of our capacity and our funding levels to be that spread out. So we have more services occurring within our service centers and early learning centers. The silver lining is there's a bunch of silver linings actually, but one silver lining is that we are doing a recruitment job right now to try to get typically developing youngsters into our programs. And so we can continue to do inclusive practices and have more of a mixed setting rather than all kids with disabilities in one place getting just intervention services. And that's going well. And we will continue to push into that new strategy, so to speak. It's our first board meeting of the school year. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say what I thought we were going to be facing this year in terms of some hot topics and things that we need to get after. One of them is attendance. I saw last week the governor signed a proclamation around attendance in schools. I don't know if you all saw that, but Whitney Wagner, one of our resident attendance expert at the ESD, was at the signing. She got to meet the governor, took a really awesome picture with the governor, and it was pretty cool. But Whitney is going to be working with Ryan Blasquez, John Peplinski, and our superintendents, and then with our curriculum directors in our school districts on attendance this year. It is a big focus for our team, and I know in the school districts as well. The data are they're really stark. It's debilitating for our teaching staff when kids are not in class and regularly, just starting over all the time and not being able to get in the rhythm. And the percentage of kids who are chronically absent in our state and in the country right now is staggering. It's staggering. So we have to buckle down and really think differently, think hard, and lean in. Student family community partnerships. This is an on year for the integrated guidance, which for board members who've been around for a little bit, this is the Student Success Act kind of catalyzed a whole new level of community engagement requirement for targeted resources to really to serve kids who are most marginalized from our systems, furthest away from success. And there was a big effort because there's, I think, 208 I shouldn't say stuff like that on the record, but I'm pretty sure, no, it was 108. There's 108 ODE grant revenue streams in the state of Oregon that all have application requirements, reporting requirements. And so you can just imagine in a small school district, there is nobody to deal with that, right? In a large district, there's barely anybody to deal with that. And so there was an effort to combine a number of the larger programs under one roof, and it's called integrated guidance. There are 6, but now 7 with the early literacy funds moving into that fund. Our team, we are tasked as an ESD on helping our school districts navigate all that there is there, including community engagement, data and assessment use to set targets, helping districts actually write applications that that meet the requirements for ODE, helping them submit, et cetera, et cetera. So we have an integrated guidance team that's going to be very busy this year. Our school districts are going to be very busy this year doing community engagement and putting those applications together for the state. So we're excited about that work, but it's going to be a big lift. Also within that, in the community engagement realm, our equity and family partnerships team is working hard. Who I forgot to mention about the in-service. They did a ton of stuff at our in-service. So apologies there, Lawaru. But our equity and family partnerships team has queued up more than a dozen professional learning opportunities across our region to impact educational equity, including, and I wanted to make sure that the board knew that we will have another cafe summit, which is our student-led equity summit. It was awesome last year. A number of you came. And we're going to have 2 more this year, one in Columbia County and one out on the coast. So wanted to make sure, and I'll make sure the board knows when those are being scheduled. And of course, to round out my comments tonight, the legislature will be in session for a long session. We have some big rocks to move uphill. I've noted a few here. I'm not going to read my report to you, but funding adequacy. I mean, wouldn't be a long session in Oregon in the last 25 years if we weren't talking about getting some level of stable and adequate funding for our K-12 schools. We do have probably a better opportunity than at least the last decade. COSA and a number of education partners have worked with the governor's office and have actually broken through on this notion of current service level, which is the idea of where we start every 2 years to quote unquote support the same level of service that we have now. There have been some anomalies in the way that the state has done that calculation without getting into the gory details of public finance. The governor has communicated that she recognizes that that's a problem. And as I said in my report, we believe that we will start with $500 million more in the education kitty than we would have without that conversation, without even talking about investments. So we're in a better position. But as the board knows, current service level is not adequate, especially if you look at national levels of education funding, what's happening just north of us in Washington, south of us in California. We really have to make a case for why education needs to get funded in an adequate way. There are 2 pieces in here I wanted to talk about within that umbrella. One is special education funding, and I wrote here around the cap, this historical cap since we've had a state school fund. We've had double weighting for kids who are identified in special ed, but only up to 11% of your district population can be eligible for that double weighting. When you talk to like the historians in Oregon, which are like the Ozzie Roses and folks, we're like, how did you come up with that number? And they're like, we guessed at that number. But the idea on the cap was that you didn't want to reinforce districts just making kids eligible for special ed to get the more funding. So it was kind of a protection around that notion. So as I wrote here, as a lifelong special ed teacher, I'm very supportive of more money for special education. And it can't just be, we're going to take this cap away, but not add more resource into the pot because it just comes from somewhere, right? It just comes from general ed classrooms, or it comes from our technology footprint or whatever. So, so we need to make sure that any change there is associated with actual resources to support it. There's also another thing I didn't write about in my report, which is called the High Cost Disability Fund. And at the ESD, this is a really important fund for our districts. It basically reimburses school districts for expenditures per student above a certain level. And I'm going to say it, but I'm probably wrong right now. I think it's above 30,000. It used to be 30,000. It might be $35,000. So above that, you're supposed to be able to you're supposed to be able to apply for this fund and get reimbursement for students above that threshold. And last year, I believe the numbers were about a 40% return on the dollar. So 40 cents was brought back into school districts. It's obviously 60% is borne then by the school district. And so the idea is to grow that fund, and where that becomes very, very important for the ESD is one of our services that our school districts participate in is our special schools. Levi Anderson, Cascade Pacific Academies, our new program out in Columbia County, which is going to be called Meadowlark Academy, by the way. So districts pay obviously per kid a lot more than that 35,000, and they're not getting the reimbursement. And it's a big, big problem when a lot more kids are showing up with a lot more significant mental health problems, et cetera. So we'll be paying attention to that. And then just to, continue to talk about EIECSE and the funding deficit there. That program plus our regional inclusive services programs have been historically underfunded. EIECSE is on the yo-yo, obviously, and those are areas where we need to make a big impact in this legislative session. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Are there any questions for the superintendent?
Just briefly, I'm really excited about this legislative agenda. I think everyone on this board really cares deeply about getting resources at a level that we can offer equitable services. If there's any way that we can throw our weight behind this agenda, like leading up to or during long session, ways that board members can support in an advocacy role, I'd be interested in learning that. Doesn't necessarily have to be an answer today, but as things develop, I'd be interested to learn more.
Yes, thank you for that. We have a really strong history in our region, and especially on our board of having a number of events that we do with our local representatives. And then we have some really good relationships with our local representatives as well. And so, yes, we will lean into that as a board, and more to come.
Any other questions for the superintendent? All right. Thank you, superintendent. Now, a part that we all look forward to, and is recognition and good news. And we have some good news tonight. And will Annie and Catherine come and join us up front? But Kelsey, I'll hand it over to you to.
Pretty simple. You just press a button and it turns green. All right. Good evening, Superintendent Goldman, Chair Timchuk, and board members. Since we're in Forest Grove School District, we're in one of the component districts, we wanted to recognize some of the teachers and educators who use our services, especially those that have engaged and helped connect other districts to our services. And so Annie Palumbo is a high school teacher in Forest Grove, and Catherine Davis is a counselor. They invited our superintendent, regional superintendents, and other district leaders from across the region into their classroom last year so that people could see what they were doing with kids, different innovative approaches to exposing kids to career options, their career options. And Annie is also engaged in our 9th grade success team. So with that, I don't know if you guys have anything to share about your experience working with our instructional services team and the especially career and college readiness team and 9th grade success team.
Rochambeau over here. Yeah, we jumped onto participating in the rollout of a college and career readiness program called School Links. So this will be we're starting our 3rd year. Previous to that, we were using the Oregon CIS platform for about 8 years previous to that. And it's been really exciting. I think it's a very kid-focused curriculum. It's very engaging. It's a little bit more like an app. And so kids are more willing to those like 50 question surveys that are hard to get through sometimes are really fun when you get to swipe left and swipe right and do some of that. And so it's been really engaging for them. And what's really exciting for us is the opportunity in a smaller district to have access to something that helps our kids build like a genuine 4 to 6 year plan where they're continuing to go back. Everything is saved. It's linked up to their courses. So we're having their course history in there. It's looking at the surveys that they're doing. It's suggesting classes that are offered at the high school. Hey, it seems like you're really interested in building things. Let's talk about the Viking House at Forest Grove High School. And so it allows everybody to continue to go back, and as we grow and develop, just continue to explore the possibilities. I think the other thing that's really cool is it has more of an emphasis on values. So oftentimes we look at the skill sets or aptitudes, but that often doesn't incorporate, man, staying in my community and taking care of my family is really important. And what's a job where I could do that as well? I'm ready for an adventure. I would like to be a travel nurse. What does that look like? And I think that's a component that's really, really important developmentally for our students that this offers that we haven't had access to before. So that's my intro, but Annie spends more time. using it.
I'm Annie Palumbo. So I teach a couple classes. I teach a class called High School Success, which is for all the 9th graders. They take that. And then I also teach Avid 9, 10, and I teach World Studies as well. So I've been able to use school links in several of the classes that I teach. And it's really cool. Like Catherine was saying, it builds off of itself. So my 10th graders are able to come back now, and all of the stuff they did last year was saved, and they're able to go in, and we were updating our resumes today. And, they have the resume builder in it is just like the coolest thing I've ever seen, because, one of our requirements for 9th graders is they have to build a resume, but I don't know if you've ever talked to a 14-year-old about their work experience, kind of limited. But School Links really builds their resume based on like skills and interests and things like that. So it's very interactive in the way they're able to do things with them. And then as Catherine was saying as well, we have a kind of a low matriculation rate to go to a 4-year college, but School Links is really reflective of that. So they're able to focus on what's a career in my community, and how can I take classes now at the high school that's going to connect me to that. Again, when you're wanting to have 14-year-olds think about their life after high school, but it's kind of not something we can conceptualize yet. But I think the platform has really made it easy and like real world reflective for them to be able to go into the platform and learn about different jobs and careers in colleges. And then it was really cool to have the ESD bring some people out so we could like share the work we've been doing. Because it's been kind of fun to pilot it. And like, I'm the teacher of the thing, but Catherine is the behind the scenes of like, every time I don't know something, I'll just go downstairs and she'll solve my problems for me. So that's been really great to have like a partner in the building with what we're doing. So I'm excited to see like School Links expand, especially as we move farther into like kids being juniors and seniors and having all of these resources to go back and pull from. So thank you for having us.
That is great. Does any board members have any comments? Doug?
Just 2 quick questions. One is, I'm curious, are the students themselves aware of, I'm sure they're aware of it, but this is really neat. Are they aware that they're just sort of, in this program, it's going to be their future, and that they can have control over it? And I guess my second question is, are you hearing from parents? I'm sure that you probably are, because this would be a very worthwhile thing for families as well.
I think, and you can probably speak to this more than I can, especially our students who used CIS the year before and that got to jump into school, and so we're like, oh, this is different and this is cool, and this is exciting. So I think, they're starting to realize like what the potentials are. And again, as a result, there's potentials for like local partnership with employers and access to make your resume public for people that are looking for that. So it's got some real cool expansion opportunities for students. And then, yes, there's so many features to this. And again, this is just our 2nd year, but also, parents can have an account. And we're hoping that as we start using it a little bit more for picking classes, parents are able to see what they're doing, able to look at the careers with them. So yeah, we're really excited for what that looks like.
And I think a lot of it too is like vocabulary building because,
Yeah.
you know, the kids are coming in, they don't know the difference between a bachelor's degree and associate's degree and how to find a college that connects it to them. So that's been the really cool part of the platform is they can go in and choose a job and then it'll list for them all the colleges in Oregon that would offer a pathway to that job. So they're, you know, they're figuring out those differences. And then when we've had like back to school nights and parent teacher conferences and I'm talking to parents about this platform, they were like, oh yeah, they came home and they were talking about like, you know, they want to take stellar astronomy because they want to go and, you know, do science at Oregon State. And so, you know, it's been kind of cool to see them making these little connections. And I see it kind of following them up because they'll, even though they're done with my class, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, we talked about this thing last year. Can you like send me something? And so, you know, even if it's not in the moment, like, yes, I found my thing. I think things are sticking with them that hopefully they're carrying with them as they move forward.
Maureen?
Yeah, so thank you both. And it's exciting to hear about it. I was a mentor at Tigard High for years and years and years. So similar to Doug, it was just that student experience. And it sounds like a great opportunity to do more than kind of the mechanical tests. But what I'm curious about, and I'm assuming this is what the tool will do, is as the students go into their junior and senior year, all those connections to whether it's FAFSA or universities and community colleges, all those pieces are built in. So they're used to the tool and they just keep building and have that access for the post high school.
Absolutely. And we're starting to use it in our Avid classes. Our Avid 11 started using some of it last year and our Avid 12 is starting this year for more on the application side of things. What's really cool for us in Forest Grove, I think, is oftentimes geographically, right? Like to get our students on campus can be really challenging. And the features in terms of like virtual tours, specifics about a college, that is all within that platform. And so it really gives them access to something that they haven't had before. So.
And then my next question, maybe this is more to you, Dan. So then the goal is that this expands across. It's been a couple of years since I've mentored. I did it for several years, but it sounds wonderful. And I love the values component and just maybe the more modern lens and how students use their tools that, yeah, it sounds great. So.
Well, the goal is world domination through school links. Honestly, one of our goals with this particular program regionally, one of them is that we have a college and a career readiness team. And often when we're working in different districts and everybody's using a different platform, we can't get the level of support that people really need, especially in small school districts. So our goal is one goal is to try to get everybody on a platform that is awesome, but also that we can work across districts effectively. Another goal is we're very interested, as our most, if not every one of our school districts, very interested in connecting kids to career. And School Links has all the components that you would typically see in a college readiness system. The features that really drove our attention to it was its potential and connection to workforce ready jobs and industry partners. That is a next level in the program because you have to engage workforce to participate with you in that. But it has kind of the slickest one of the slickest interfaces that I've seen. And so that's kind of some next level thinking about how we could use this tool in a more effective way. Forest Grove, total cutting edge here. I mean, honestly, I have a message from Jamie Brady, who's on our team. They're like, oh, they're awesome, right? Total cutting edge. They've jumped right into a new program. It was really fun. I was in your classroom. It was really fun. Just so the board knows, we have St. Helens is also working with us in this, all of Tillamook County. And I see Paul's hand up there. So I'm sure Paul might have some experience with this because of Tillamook Bay Community College. And I believe that Scappoose is on with us and maybe one other. Yeah, that's right. And, in Tiger. Right. So our goal is to try to get everybody on. That will not work, right? That you're not going to get 20 school districts to do the same exact, computer software program. But the more that we can do that, the more we can actually have a learning collaborative where Forest Grove is meeting with Tigard and meeting with St. Helens, and we're trying to figure out how to do things better. Yeah. So thank you guys for your work.
And I love the Viking house too. It's
Mhm.
awesome fantastic. Paul?
Thank you, and sorry I couldn't be there today. Great to hear the presentation. I think that, this early career exploration, and I mean, ninth grade isn't even early anymore, but trying to get, exposure to careers, I think is really fantastic. I'm curious about at TBCC. I know all of our high school districts use this. We use a similar product, but not School Links itself. But I'm curious about the tie-in with career exploration, with discussions of students about living wages and incomes and things like that some of these careers might lead to. And is there a conversation about careers, one about what a living wage is and occupations that could support that living wage. And I suppose that probably in this is if a particular career has an on-ramp as in a particular profession, it would talk about what the ladder might look like toward a higher wage earning and things like that if there was more training and education along the way.
So in high school success and in Avid 910, we do several units on like financial literacy and, how to like plan for being a human that has to live on your own. So they're researching like apartment costs in Forest Grove. And, I want it to be reflective of the world they're going to live in. And then in School Links, there is I forget the exact name of it, but there's a budgeting activity they do where they're going to go in and they're going to choose like, did I get a degree or did I not get a degree? And then they're going to choose a job based on that. And then it'll give them like the median income. And then they get to choose like how many kids they have and where they're living and what type of lifestyle they're going to have. So, we try to make that reflective of the real world experience. So we have them go in and say like, okay, the School Link said you're going to spend this much on rent. How much is a boxer apartment downtown? And they get to compare those two things. So I think it's really cool that the system has that built in so they can kind of track, if I don't get a college degree, what's the most I could earn in my given profession versus if I do? And then how does that translate to me being a human that lives in Forest Grove and can I survive on that? So, I think again, it's hard to like get them to really get that to sink in and be concrete for them, but to get them thinking about, oh, maybe I should be thinking about an associate's degree because, I can go to Portland Community College for free if I graduate with a 2.5 GPA. So, getting those conversations started and just being reflective about what finances are going to look like is definitely built into School Links and something that I've really enjoyed using, especially compared to the previous Oregon CIS system, which was not
Able to do that.
able to do that.
Yeah.
Great.
I think-
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
Any-
This sounds really amazing because I remember doing the career path when I was younger and doing that whole check. It was not fun. So it seems like it's tailored to, obviously how our kids are responding. I'm curious as far as it seems like you're targeting the ninth grade class for those youth who might not always make it to school or might miss out on this opportunity. So the question would be, how are we reaching out to the youth that are maybe not always in school, but might have interest in, working and being connected and, being able to provide for themselves financially for their families? How are we reaching some of those kiddos that might not necessarily always be there to take advantage of, a great opportunity like this?
Well, I will say, I think Annie has done an incredible job of it's like a built out like units. So it's not just kind of like a one survey and we're done. It's like a whole curriculum that we're really coming back and touching to months on months on months. And then we are building in ways through our advisory lessons and also junior and senior year at Forest Grove High School, students participate in a half-day career expo. And I will say like our community and our community partners show up in a big way. The school is packed. Everybody's doing career panels and walking through expos and getting on simulators. And then they're going back into School Links and they're reflecting on what are the panels that they went to, where could that lead to further investigation. So each year we're trying to find ways that students are going back and building on that profile and touching that curriculum in some way.
The second question is, I know that sometimes there's youth that are bilingual and some or monolingual, but actively just as involved in their education. Is it also in different languages that they could also still be connected.
That was one of the biggest selling features for our student population is that it is automatically translatable. And so you can just click the button in the top right-hand corner and everything is translated into the language that you need. And that was a huge feature that we were missing. So
And I just want to just add we hear from our students that when they're getting ready to graduate, one of the first, one of the things they say, could we do better as a school district? And it's always a lot of times those life skills. And I've been a long time avid tutor, and it is so great when those students get their own aha that maybe a car payment shouldn't be bigger than, they see their priorities, but they get to do their own aha. So it's so valuable what you are giving our students. So we're so glad that you can be here today and that we can recognize the great work that you're doing. And with that, we have some things to share with you.
Sure. Would you guys mind if we gave you some Northwest? Nothing says thank you. It's like ESD swag.
love that. Oh.
Okay, with that, like I said, we love that part. We love when we get to recognize our great work. We love that. And it's a reminder of why we all do what we do. So I really appreciate that. With that, we have public comment. Board secretaries, any public comment tonight? All right, thank you so much. Next item of business is the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Russell, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? With that, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay, and abstain. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? With that, the motion passes unanimously. Next order of business are reports and discussion items. And our first order of business is Diverse Educator Pathway Program. And we have Yolanda Coleman and Debbie Simmons.
Hey, Debbie, would you mind tipping those towards you? I mean, the mics. Yeah.
Turning them on.
Yeah, and turning them on.
And turning them on.
All
Sorry,
that stuff.
Stuart. I'm like, oh, yeah. Ah, perfect. Perfect. Maybe. Just a second. There we go. As the board remembers, maybe, let's see if I can get it connected there. We have been working to develop kind of a regional workforce development plan that works across all 4 counties. In the summer of 23, the Diverse Educator Pathway and Grow Your Own staff were moved out of IST, the Instructional Services team, and over to Human Resources at the same time that Yolanda joined us as our talent acquisition administrator. We started reaching out to different organizations as well as our 20 school districts. I have a vision that we have a lot of resources in developing individual pieces. We have the diverse educator pathway that helps identify students in high school and puts them on a path for education careers. We have our dual credit programs through Willamette Promise and others that help kids earn credits when they are in high school. We have our STEM and STEAM teams who do a lot of work. And then kids go to college and we may or may not get them as connected as we should into education as a career. Certainly education has taken a reputable hit in terms of, is this a great career? It is a great career if you want to make a difference to kids. And it is also one where there is a shortage of qualified people. And so the arrows here kind of show we had built this idea of really 3 paths, and one of them being taking high school students. When they graduate high school, there is no reason why we can't train and mentor them to be instructional assistants while they are going to school to get their teaching degrees, help them to go to colleges, community colleges to finish and then finish at the university, help them with their licensure. There's no reason we can't coordinate all of that if we put a plan together. Instructional assistants and classified staff sometimes make our best teachers. Many of them have the gift of working with kids, and life happens somewhere along the way and they weren't able to go back to school. And so there's a path there. And then we have people from the community or other people who had an initial career can become an instructional assistant as well, go to community college, go to university. And so we started working on this plan last fall, coordinating with university partners, community college, meeting with our districts. Yolanda will share a little bit more about what we've done and what's happening right now, but really looking too at how do we mentor at each stage, taking a high school senior in September and putting them as an instructional assistant in front of high school kids would take an awful lot of training and an awful lot of mentoring. That being said, they could be really good at it at the elementary and middle school. And that is an area where we do need help. Coordinating all of the resources about where all the scholarships are, how to pay for college. The cost of college is what gets in a lot of people's way. It is and can look like a huge insurmountable number. The year that we had the one-time $40, $30 where the ESD chose to take many of those dollars and support our first cohort of staff going through college, we were shocked at how many people needed help with paying for textbooks, which seems like an ancillary thing. Those of us that have gone to college know that's an expense. We know that it's an expensive expense. We know it happens every term. People who don't have that background or that experience aren't necessarily prepared for those incidental pieces. And so looking at how we could coordinate that as well as people are done, promising them a position if they meet the requirements. Can we do that for you? And so then also working on having coordinated partnerships. The university system has made a few changes, but I think one of the things that was shocking to us last year is that there's not a single application for community college. Every single one of them has a different application and a different process. And so as we sit and talk about that and talk with them about that, it's been a really great avenue to talk about where are there opportunities for us to remove barriers for people entering the profession and meeting the requirements for different degrees. And then also looking at having seamless enrollment between finishing community college programs and going into a university program rather than having people need to reapply and pay more another application fee, and then you have to be accepted. Our first experience with Western, not only did you have to apply to Western Oregon University, you also had to apply to the Education School of Education. And so if you don't know, you need 2 applications, you need it can be a really confusing process with a lot of barriers. If you're also trying to work, support, feed a family, do all of those things, it can be a pretty big challenge. So I think this is you. You'll need to push the button and turn your microphone on. No, yeah. Oh, this one's still mine. Okay, thanks. Sorry, it has been a long day. We initially spent the first half of last year meeting with Western Oregon and Parkland Community College in terms of just trying to align those things. We had started working directly with Western Oregon the year before with our first cohort of can we come up with an education program that people can do and still work to maintain their life? One of the challenges, particularly in teaching, is that you typically have had to quit your job in order to do the student teaching during the year because of the hour requirements, because of those kinds of things. Western has been an incredible partner for us. They have an online program where it can be done mostly online, can be done on weekends. We've also been able to customize some of the student teaching requirements that meet the needs of like our early learning department because they don't teach traditional K-12. Can we align those experiences with student teaching to get them that effort? And so we met with them for probably the first half of last year. Then we expanded and went to this regional educator pathway coordination meeting. And that's a big one. We have Western Oregon in the room, Portland Community College, Chemeketa in the room. We have our REN team there. We have our dual credit folks there. We have the diverse educator pathway, the Grow Your Own. And we have districts that want to participate with us. So there are times there are 25, 30, 35 of us in a room talking about what is the need and how can we get some of these things moving along. We then also applied to the REN for a small grant to pilot a classified mentoring program. There are a lot of dollars already in the region for licensed mentoring, administrative mentoring, and yet we often forget our classified staff who are the ones sometimes dealing directly with students that have challenging behaviors. They are working with a small group of kids and don't understand what managing that looks like or how to ask questions. And so we are getting ready to start that piece. And then Yolanda's team really did an incredible job last year. We increased the number of students participating in our diverse educator pathway from 181 to 259, which means at least at the high school level, there are 259 students in the region who are interested in education as a career. The trick is they're interested. How do we keep them and how do we keep them on the path to do that? McMinnville School District has a very strong Grow Your Own program and system. They presented at our last regional workforce development committee about what they do, how it works, how they do their tuition payments, how they prioritize which licensure path gets full support, which ones get they have a tiered support system. And then our Grow Your Own program, we include the title on the board agenda says DEP, the Diverse Educator Pathway, but is really twisted together with our Grow Your Own as well. Because if we have the opportunity to increase diversity with our bilingual staff and help them on a path, we do twist all of the resources in order to have a pretty cohesive system as we move forward. This one I know is Yolanda.
Okay, where are we now? Right now, we are fully staffed with on the Diverse Educator Pathway team. There's a total of 4 of us. So there's myself. We have our coastal connector, and that's Kelly Thayer. She's been a great asset to our team. She lives on the coast. She's worked on the coast. She's worked at the high schools there. So she's really tight with the community. She knows all the ins and outs of it. She knows, who's who and who to talk to. They're so comfortable with her and know who she is. She's able to walk right into the high schools. So she's walking into the high schools and talking to the people who are supporting our students and working with the program. And it's been great to see the work that she's been able to do. She's also got 2 new schools that are going to be joining and working with us this year. So that's been really wonderful. I feel like she goes above and beyond also just showing, I feel like the commitment of our team and our department, because she'll go and help them at STEAM fairs. She knows the students and they'll say, oh, I'm kind of nervous about them, about this or that. And she knows them because she's been there with them. So she goes and she supports them and she takes the, ESD logos with her and it's just a really good connection. We have Rami. She's our new higher education liaison. And so her background is she's a historian by career. She's very proud of that. And it's nice to have her be able to bring that historical perspective, because sometimes we find ourselves in situations that where history is repeating itself. And so she's that person that likes to dig in and find that and share that information with us. But beyond that, she's also worked previously with PCC. So she brings that information of how to navigate that network. And it's been really helpful as we have students that are signing up for PCC, or she does a case management piece as well. So we have some of our students that are already at PCC, they're already in college, but sometimes depending on what support systems you do or don't have at home, it might be a little harder for you. And so she's been able to step in, have the proper paperwork signed off. And so then she goes with that student and meets with the advisors. Then she's able to come back and tell them, well, this is what you need, or you need this, or you need that. And so one student in particular this summer, she was able to work with. So she connected with one of our high school, coordinators, and found out kind of what the student's history was and what the struggle was. And so then the three of them met and they coached the student through the college process. And so the student actually had a bill, so they weren't able to start, because you have to pay those bills off. But they were able to negotiate a plan and a system. So the student in the fall, she's going back to school. And so that's pretty exciting, because we all hit hiccups along the way. And so it's great to have systems in place that support students beyond high school and beyond those hiccups. We have Ryan, and he's our newest member, and he's our DEP coordinator. And so he's working with the districts and the connectors and the students, and doing a little bit of all the pieces. I think that's one of the things I like about our team. We all do a little bit of all the pieces to make sure that the work gets done. And we're really proud of the fact that this year we have all of Washington counties participating. We have Nestucca Valley schools that are participating. And again, there's the two new districts that, or not districts, but the two new high schools that are going to be participating with us this year. We're also, after she'd mentioned earlier that we heard from McMinnville and some of the pieces that they're doing. And so we're adding something this year to our program, which is going to be we have a summer program where we support students with summer internship positions, but we're going to be trying a pilot program where students will be doing that during the school day as well. So maybe if they have a late start or an early release, they'll be able to go to their elementary school and support that way, and have an opportunity, because we have funding for it. They'll be able to have an income, gain a little bit of money to help with that as well. This year, we also have a retreat planned. Last year, we started back with the retreats for the connectors, but we have one planned for the students as well, the participants. And that was something that we didn't have the funding for last year, but it was something that all the districts and all the students were really excited about. It was so awesome when they did it before. And so we're committed to bringing that back to them this year. We also have regular steering committee meetings and connector retreats. And the connector retreats it's not much, it's not a flashy, exciting thing, but they come to the ESD with us, and we host them for a day. We have an opportunity to do a little bit of training and talk about what's going on in the different regions. And this year, we're also going to plan in opportunities or time about the second half of the day where they can talk with each other and do some planning and share news about what successes they're having in their districts. In the past, we've also hosted classes like one term with one of our community college partners on the coast. That hasn't been, we weren't able to go forward with that last year. And so we connected with PCC. And so not only did we do one in the springtime last year, but this year we're planning to do fall, winter, and spring courses. And it's nice because we have enough seats where we can have our DEP students participate and our Grow Your Own students if they're out there and want to participate. So I'm excited about having that opportunity for all of our members that might be interested. Finally, some of the things that are some successes that we're really excited about. We had our first cohort from Western Oregon University graduate, and almost all of those students, except for 3, were hired, but there's the final 2 that are in the process of being hired. One is entered into a new position that's going to allow them to be mentored and grow into a teaching position, and the other one has just recently applied for a teaching position, so we're hoping that they'll be able to get that one. Cohort 3 also begins in the fall, and we hope to have some collaboration between cohorts 2 and 3 so they can provide some natural supports for one another. And then with our instructional assistant mentorship program, we will be starting that this month as well. And so we've been in the process of talking to mentors who would be willing to mentor new instructional assistants. And so I'm really excited to see how that pans out. And the feedback about that's been really good. And we collaborated with our classified union to make this happen and be supported across the district.
Is exciting that that first cohort, those were all special education teachers. And that is, when you look at those 3 cohorts that we have, those are all special ed focused, which is one of the greatest shortage areas in the state. Better yet, when you can keep them as your own. Easier to find them that way. Finally, where are we going? Dan always tells me I'm sometimes expensive. I'm going to say this isn't just me. This was a group planning. As we look towards the new legislative session, we also look for the fact that our Grow Your Own grant expires this upcoming June. There will be another grant we believe will come available in the spring, starting to plan now for what that grant may need to support. Certainly know that not all of it will be supported by the grant. What we'd like to do in talking with our districts is see if we can't create a student internship program that would essentially provide stipends to 200 students to have 20 hours of paid internship time working in the education field while they are in high school. We would like to have a scholarship program that is consistent rather than a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That would support 40 educators across the region pursuing licensed endorsements on looking at McMinnville's tiered system, where perhaps those that are most difficult to find, like special education, math, science, receive full scholarships, and then some that are a less hardship area receive partial scholarships so that we can provide financial support to as many as we can. Right now, we're estimating roughly 40. And expanding the classified mentoring support throughout the region. Seaside particularly has asked us to really look at offering that and participating with us. And then, like I said, rewrite the Grow Your Own grant when it becomes available for more of a regional plan in terms of what that looks like. But we asked our workforce team how often they wanted to meet, and they like to meet every month. So we are, and we continue to move forward. And it is exciting when you can talk about what can we do when we all get in the same room.
Is there any questions about this exciting program?
Guys, thank you. It is very exciting. And so the first couple questions, and this might be to Dan or to both of you, as you think about the renewal of the grants or needing the added funding, is there any risk or concern as we adjust for current service level? I mean, it would be wonderful if the bucket of money in Salem was overflowing and a ripple effect didn't occur, but is there any concern of having to have a louder voice, as Dorian brought forward, because we're going to adjust current service level and take a $500 million?
There's a huge concern. And I say that I also serve on the statewide salary task force, and there are more proposals than there's more money possible. And so just in those conversations with our state leadership in the legislative, there's not an endless pot of money. That being said, that certainly the EAC is funded. There's certainly proposals that ask them to be more focused with some of the REN dollars and some of those pieces. So I think it will just depend on where dollars land. I have kind of a flipped view both ways. I'm excited when I see people graduating and we want them to work for us. It's also very difficult when we are eliminating 80 positions. The fact that we were able to hire all but 3, given the layoffs that we did in the spring, and some of the position eliminations, I count that as a huge win. And I certainly, while I didn't do the day-to-day piece, I'm very proud of the work my team did to make that work. Yolanda's work in building the program and building different options, I think gives us some hope. And then my $840,000 budget isn't just a single fund. So I'm hoping that there will be enough diversification in my funding streams to hopefully support what we are trying to do.
Well, thank you both. And just to step back, Debbie, and because it was on consent, but all the work in navigating personnel and how that report came back and who was coming back and maybe different positions, but just really want to thank you for all the hard work that was done.
My team
and,
worked really hard over this summer.
Well
so.
done. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chris.
Do you have a sense of looking especially at the early childhood thank you, the early childhood program? What percent of your classified staff are interested in becoming teachers? I mean, is it a little or big?
I can speak to just the qualifications of our classified staff. We have several classified staff that already have degrees. So they may have a bachelor's degree. It's interesting, some of the human resources confidential staff have master's degrees, and they've come to us in different ways. I do know you've had some, Yolanda meets with every single person personally.
I don't have an actual percentage, but I feel like the number is good. I mean, it's a strong number where our classified staff members do want to, move forward. And I think what prevents some right now is just to whether they can manage it within their, juggle all those balls within their own home. And so that seems to be, a part of the struggle. And then we have some younger students that are interested and I think that's kind of where I'm really focusing right now. They are interested, but they don't have their bachelor's. And so I like the fact that we're offering, the PCC classes, and I'm hoping that, if that budget comes through and allows us some more scholarships that we can work, because there are paths for them, but it's not just the will, then you need the money. And so I'm hoping that we'll find that funding to support them to that next level.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, some gratitude and a question. I think first I'll say, as somebody who was the first person in my family to graduate high school and to go to college, I know how deeply important these types of supportive programs are to get folks the types of kind of cultural capital it takes to navigate systems that were not built by or for people from a low socioeconomic status. My question is, in this program and the folks that have gone through so far and kind of looking ahead, can you give me a sense of kind of the demographic breakdown, like how people identify race, ethnicity, gender identity, socioeconomic status? Like the name says diverse. Are we seeing that reflected in participant self-identified data?
I think that we have been. I feel like we have. And so looking at the true definition of diverse, so we see cultural diversity. I think in this third class, we're seeing more diversity as far as like where people are from and their language skills, but we are also seeing the diversity within socioeconomics, and then also within neurodiversity amongst staff members. And so it's very diverse. I mean, it's not a huge class, but it is diverse with the participants that we've had come through. But looking, like I said, diversity in all those different areas. It's not a narrow definition of it.
I would say with that first group that went through, not as diverse on the surface, but certainly socioeconomically, I think they helped teach us the level of support and coordination. I think initially, at least my misconception was we'd provide them the money and it would be just simple. We'll just help them do that. Within working with coordinating some of the things, it didn't occur to me like there's a $39 fee for X. I don't have the money to do that. And so then working out, well, how are we going to do that? Or even as much as the system, when the university or college emails you your invoice every month of here's what's due, helping people read that and understand what that means. I completely underestimated the amount of support people who, when I went to school, I had two choices when I graduated. I could go in the military or I could go to college. I don't run unless a bear's coming. So college it was for me. And that's just how it worked in my family. And so that was just what you did. To not have that opportunity, I think I completely underestimated that level of support.
I think I would add to that. That's where one of the positive things about being a partner with Western Oregon, because within that first cohort as well, we had the neurodiversity that was different, and their staff was really great at not needing, official documentation, but meeting our students where they were and providing what they needed, and then also advocating. So letting us know if they needed more. And so Western Oregon has been a great partner for that.
Learn. Right. So thank you so much for bringing us up to date. And it's very exciting that when we can hear about things that we're doing within our own area. So next up, we have equity learning opportunities.
Greetings. I have information to share with you. I appreciate you having me here to share the equity learning opportunities at this organization. One of the things I'm most proud of is our dedication to fostering an inclusive and educational, equitable learning environment for all of our staff and for our students. And so we provide a comprehensive suite of equity learning opportunities designed to deepen our understanding of equity and anti-racism, support professional growth, and diversify and drive systemic change for students within our community. This is our equity and family partnerships team. We have our equity learning opportunities are supported and driven by these staff as well as many others who support us. And the result of this listing is coming from staff surveys, from focus groups, from empathy interviews, from in-service feedback, from bargaining units, and story circles where we gathered information about what motivates our staff, what do they need from us, and what we can provide to support. Let the beauty of what you love be what you do. We work as a team to offer this. We love what we do. We really enjoy the opportunities to be able to connect with our staff, and that drives our approach to our work. And we invite all of our staff to explore the enriching opportunities that we have and to join us in our commitment to equity and to anti-racism. So for change to occur system-wide, institutions need to address change at multiple levels of scale, especially the individual, the interpersonal, and the organizational levels. So our equity learning opportunities often cross over into multiple levels, but we've arranged them here in their primary areas of where they have intent and focus. So let's first look at the individual area. Staff at our equity onboarding gain essential knowledge about our equity initiatives and organizational commitments. And this required 2-hour training for all new staff covers our equity stance and actions, equips our staff with the tools and supports to shape our organization's future. And all of our staff are invited to participate as well. Just our new staff within 90 days, they get this and they have an understanding of the organization and where they're able to be and bring their full and authentic selves. This interactive workshop with Lewis and Clark College explores topics from the introduction to gender diversity, to the impacts of disinformation, to putting policy into practice. The Transactive Gender Project is an excellent partnership that we have going into the year. Our anti-racism reflections and prototyping, this is for all staff to be engaged and supported in seeking understanding of how racial ideology is manufactured, how it impacts the lived experiences of young people we serve daily. And so in this open check-in, staff join us for personal organizational reflections to identify actionable steps to advance educational equity work. Our intercultural development inventory, this is a new support that we are piloting. The results of the IDI can be profoundly beneficial for educators and by extension for our students in a variety of ways. We show how the IDI results can be utilized in advancing the goals of equity and family engagement and positively impact our students. The information meeting that we have here explores how to utilize the results to enhance self-awareness, professional growth, and create a more inclusive educational environment. And by leveraging the IDI, educators learn to better connect with students from diverse backgrounds, create culturally sustaining curricula, and contribute to dismantling structural barriers for historically marginalized groups. We will be exploring, and actually we've started this already, this engaging book by Zaretta Hammond. It's where our administrators explore practical strategies for enhancing student engagement and achievement through culturally responsive practices. Amazing book that ties together all of the work that we talk about related to understanding our students and where they're at. The study deepens our understanding of how to create inclusive learning environments that honor the diverse cultural backgrounds of our students. Next up, the interpersonal. So again, some of these overlap, of course, in between where they fall, but the idea of engaging with each other. I'll start off with our story circle. Story circle training, we developed a story circle toolkit, as you are aware, and the toolkits for an effective story circle is equipped with engaging prompts and has intentional reflections that are within there. Participants, internal staff, and staff of component districts who ask us for those supports. They learn how to connect with parents, with students, and with community for meaningful community engagement, and more importantly, ongoing partnership. We have story exchange with Narrative 4 as well. This was something that we offered during in-service. In this, staff explore new ways to share stories, build bridges, and change lives with story exchanges. Narrative 4 offers educators creative tools to teach compassion and develop strong student leaders in the classroom and the community. And with our facilitator-led story exchanges, we build a culture of inclusivity and connectedness, with our primary audience being students and understanding how they connect with one another. Impeccable Ally Workshop Series. Staff who want to understand the blind spot moments that hinder us from building sustainable cross-racial relationships have this offering to be able to support them. It's a 3-part training. We've offered it twice before with rave reviews and requests to bring it back. It gives clarity to allyship and guides us on a clear path to establishing trust and making an impact. Adrienne Marie Brown's book describes how emergent strategies intersect with facilitation and mediation to help us hold change. This is facilitated by Ben Brun and includes a copy of the book. And this kind of navigates a little bit related to things that require facilitation. So to make it easier for people with shared intentions to be around each other and move towards a common vision and values. But we also touch base on areas that may be more mediation or navigating conflict in a way that is generative and accountable. And then finally, in this section, Liberatory Design 101 and Liberatory Design Mindsets and Modes. Staff got an introductory look at this in our in-service, and we take a deeper dive into liberatory design in the spring. The session equips staff with the knowledge and reflective practices needed to properly incorporate liberatory principles into daily work, driving equity and justice for students, and organizational. So for our organizational look, we have anti-racist multicultural continuum. This obviously helps us identify the practical steps we need to take in order to live up to our aspirations to be an anti-racist multicultural organization. So staff joined this session to learn more about the continuum, engage in their own reflections of where they fall, and consider the next steps in their anti-racist journey, which then contributes to the overall work of the organization through their departmental efforts. Equity learning teams. These teams are committed to continuous learning and identifying equity challenges within our systems. They address these particular challenges, focus on building meaningful relationships and co-designing solutions to systemic barriers, advancing our journey on the anti-racist multicultural continuum. We have about 20 teams that cover all of our departments, all of our programs, and our schools. Next up is the Equity Collaborator Program. We are introducing this new Equity Module Learning Series. It's led by administrators and equity collaborators from within various departments, programs, and teams. They facilitate monthly meetings for staff to deepen their equity learning amongst our staff by department. And so we work with training our staff to be equity collaborators and equity trainers themselves. They go into their departments and they lead them in their team work. This was an idea and concept that came out of the equity learning teams. And then I want to touch base on cafes. So the distinctive conference that was mentioned earlier is a Northwest regional version of the 3 ESD cafe sessions and convenings that were held prior to COVID, along with Multnomah and Clackamas CSDs. Our regional conference empowers K-12 students to drive the change toward educational equity in our footprint. Staff gained valuable insight directly from these students as they discussed their experiences and effective approaches to teaching methods, curriculum, support systems, and policies. Our next one's going to be held on November 16th at Vernonia School District. And in the spring, as was mentioned, will be held out at the coast. We have to get that contracted, so just know that it's out there on the coast, probably May 3rd. And so I wanted to give you a quick glimpse into the May regional convening. So I have a quick video. Do we have audio on the video? Okay. I'll push this button.
What I hope that educators take away from the summit is a new understanding of the students' perspectives. I gave my point of view on how I see things in my school and how other students see things in our school and how things can change. And then we did like a 4 corners activity to see how the teachers reacted to the skit. People take for granted how much life and how much thought and intelligence young people have. Now they are able to be up in front and stand and talk, and people are active.
There we go. So with this one, we had the opportunity to pull in some of the students who presented at the Cafe Summit with me at the in-service session. And so staff learned how to facilitate student-driven conferences and events and workshops and discussions during that session. They heard directly from students and learned about their impact of their participation on their education, demonstrating the power of student voice in driving educational initiatives. So I really enjoyed being able to present with the students at that 4-hour in-service. And that concludes my sharing of equity learning opportunities. And as my ancestors say, do your mission, protect your peace, and guard your health. I would encourage you to speak that to your future self as well.
As always, thought-provoking and educational. Are there any questions about presentation, work that's being done? Yes.
Well, may I just make a comment, Madam Chair? I'm just super proud of the work of our Equity and Family Partnerships team. Lawaru came, as you said, we started working with Lawaru before the pandemic. He was in a different role, came to the organization in the middle, really in the pandemic, and him and Inger McDowell Hardy, Katie Jones, their whole team, Jeanette, and now Nancy have put together, I think, the most comprehensive equity professional development and support system that I've ever been involved in. And I've worked in 4 different districts in our area, right? So I'm just really impressed. I think there's so much there for our staff and our partners, our district staff, to lean into. So I just wanted to congratulate you on the work there. It's excellent.
And I would encourage anyone, if it fits in your schedule, to attend the cafe. I learned a lot that day. Our students are so impressive, and the work that we're doing for them to be our future, it's in good hands. All right, our next order of business is the Hillsborough Early Learning Facility Project. Jordan and Luke.
Thank you, Chair Timchuk. Before I hand it over to Luke, I wanted to just open it up with a few comments because it was brought to my attention that I've put a couple of concepts out there, but I haven't put them together. And so I wanted to do that. When Luke is going through his presentation, by the way, this is Luke from Winnahaw Group with me here today, our project manager for this project. He's the one keeping everything on time, along with Todd Hendrickson, our facilities director, on time and on budget. And so that's one of the things that he's going to talk about is we are on budget. As you all know, when we talk about budgets, there are revenue assumptions and expense assumptions. So I've been saying that we're on budget. I've also talked at a different time about how there's a grant that we need to get in order for us to fulfill the revenue side of that. So we are on budget to that initial budgeted expense figure. We have not received the grant that we need to hit the revenue side of that equation.
Yeah.
Yet, yes. I did think that we were real strong candidates for the seismic rehab grant. We did apply for that. Our application was not considered because there are not students currently being served in the facility. That's a difference of opinion about what the intended language in the bill meant. But it doesn't matter. The people administering the grant read the language different than I did. It is what it is. As luck would have it, there is an early childhood infrastructure grant program that came from the last long session and has finally been implemented. Applications are due at the end of this month. We have had contact with Business Oregon, who is also administering this grant, and have confirmed that we are a very solid candidate for this grant. And the representative we spoke to even said, you are exactly who this grant was developed for. So, we won't count our chickens before they hatch, but this does seem like a much stronger possibility. We're currently working on a grant application. That was in the consent agenda, was your authorization for us to pursue that grant. We are going to attempt to put together a grant package that allows us to pursue the maximum grant award, which is $2 million. What we need out of the grant is a little over $1 million. And so if we can get more, there are other things that we would love to do to make that facility better for the staff and the students who will be there. But the target we're looking for is about $1 million from that grant. And so when Luke says that we are on time and we are on budget, he is not lying. And it's a little more complicated than just that. So I just wanted to preface with that and then kick it over to Luke for an update on construction progress.
Great, thank you. It's fun to do this work because I started my career as a teacher. It was fun to listen to your recruitment experts back here talking about, folks getting into education. I started as a teacher, became a school principal after 7 years teaching history and English. And then I ended up in the construction world doing K-12 primarily. So now it's fun to give back and get to work on all the way from pre-K all the way through higher ed on some occasions. So this is another great project. We got to meet, Stacy brought some folks through for the preschool program recently, and we got to show off the building and where we're headed. And so now we're trying to keep on schedule. I don't think schedule is going to be a challenge on this project. We're keeping our contractor in line in really good shape and budget. Jordan's doing a great job of hustling to make sure we can have a really quality project that has excellent space for your students and that we can meet all those financial obligations. Let's see if I just click that forward here. All right. So our construction period, we began in May of 24 here, and construction, the final completion would be in February of 25. Substantial completion when it would be ready to occupy is in January. So we're well on our way to accomplishing that and being on time. Pretty soon we'll start talking about closeout process and so on with our contractor. But right now we've framed out the interior of the building. We've completed all demolition activities for the interior of the building. And now we're working on the MEP, which is the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then fire suppression, the other elements of the building that are hidden in the walls and in the ceiling and in the floor in some cases. So we've been working this summer on managing all of those different aspects. Sometimes we've got dirty spaces, as you'll see in some of the pictures, where we've got earth come up from underneath the slab of the building. And then we've got all kinds of people working over the top of each other to make sure that these spaces are ready to enclose in the walls pretty darn soon here. So drywall and fire protection, drywall is kind of our next step right now. So we're starting to see that happen in the pictures ahead. Site improvements, we did have a bit of a challenge with the jurisdiction as far as getting our site permits. We thought we had everything kind of figured out and did a lot of pre-planning meetings, but we had a couple things to work through. So that was one of the early challenges. We've been able to partner with our neighboring property and work through an easement process this summer. And now we've got all the permits we need and have released the contractor to get that site work completed. And the first piece of that site work is to retrofit the tilt panels, giant concrete panels of the exterior of the building to the footing. And And so you'll see some pictures ahead where we've got ties that will start to go in to complete that footing tie for our seismic retrofit. There will also be stormwater improvements. We're next to a water resource at the property because it's pretty low-lying property, and so we need to make sure we keep the environment healthy. And that's also kind of a learning opportunity for your students and staff there, just protecting natural space there. Sorry if I'm going a little bit fast. All right. And like Jordan said, we've got our construction budget, total budget for construction is 7.8 million. And so we've just been managing our process and keeping track of all of our expenses along the way. And anyway, that's all in positive territory right now. The plan is to occupy in phases starting in March, once we've got our final completion, and through August. And so we'll be working with Todd Henderson to make sure that we can phase that occupation back into the building and begin serving students in the summer of 25. So it'll be exciting to see the place fully occupied once we're done. And finally, I've got some progress pictures here. The team has met on a regular basis once a week here to visit the site, exterior and interior. So we've got pictures of the roof space there where we did some flashing work and some work to dry in the building from around the exterior. The building sat for a couple of years before we purchased it. And so there's some spaces where the ceiling tiles were damaged from water and so on. So that has been repaired at this point, and we're prepared at the end of or during the fall to actually lift those new HVAC units onto the roof and replace those, and that will be the final piece of our roof piece. We had to remove some of the landscape features around the building in order to get to the footings, and so the areas that you see dug up here are the exposing of the footing and preparing to put on our seismic ties, which will anchor that building and make sure that should we have a seismic event, it's secure and safe for the future. And then inside, you also see that we've dug up some spaces in the center there. It's another spot where we're tying and bracing the walls to the foundation. We've also got some HVAC equipment in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner there that's being retained and protected to be reinstalled. The team's looking at some casework in the bottom left-hand side here and talking through how that's going to go back in place. We were able to retain quite a bit of existing casework and other materials in the building, including the carpeting. So we're really doing a good job of recycling, reusing, and trying to be environmentally friendly through the project. You can also see here we've got some sanitary lines that are running through the slab. And so there was a lot of trenching that happened in the beginning of this project to make sure that we could get all the new bathrooms and new water fountains, all of that stuff that needs to travel out of the building. So we did have tractors and all kinds of things moving through the interior of the building in the first part of the project, which is kind of fun to watch. But at this point, all of that space is framed out and we're preparing to enclose that entirely with walls. So that's kind of where our project is at this moment. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Can I give very brief kudos? So I have really limited experience with capital projects, but I am very surprised and impressed that the scope of this project is in the single digit millions, and that given what the last 4 years has looked like economically and supply chain wise, like to hear of a project doing all of these things, being on time and in budget, like seems unheard of in local government right now. So just go you. That's awesome. Like, I don't have any questions because whatever is happening, just keep doing it.
Thank you. I mean, you made a great purchase of a really quality building. That was one of the first things we heard back from inspectors and folks walking through when they started opening up the building and saw the quality of the original materials. Much of it could be retained and reused. And so it means that we don't have to put as much energy into it. But I'm excited to see the finished product and get to see teachers and students in that space. It's when you finally got all the finished work and make sure that it's a great space for learning. That'll be really exciting.
So I've got just a trust but verify question. Um, I love it when we're positive and we think something looks really good in alignment. If we don't, for some reason, land that $2 million grant, it sounds like the project, we're gonna finish it. It's not like we're gonna start. Where would we come up with that $1 million that you said we needed?
Well, the board would have to, we'd have to engage in some conversations with the board because we will need your permission. But I think the best route, the one that I would recommend, is for us to issue ourselves an interfund loan to fund the rest of construction and then reimburse ourselves through the sale of the current Hillsborough Early Childhood Center, which we won't have a need for when all of the operations from that building will be moving into this new building. And so we have had that facility assessed by Colliers. It has not been appraised, but just given us I forget, an owner's value estimate. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but where they give us an estimate and kind of compare it to other facilities on the market, what kind of sale value it would have. And we expect that facility to have a sale value in the $3 to $4 million range.
So it would still be a float situation no matter how you, right? It would be, we would take our funds that we have now to make sure we completed this project so that we could make it in there by February of 2025. And then we would go for it would just be a matter of the buckets of money floating, right?
Yeah. And the reason for doing an interfund loan, our cash position is strong enough to handle that $1 million we would need to finish out the project. And, the borrowing market right now is not, especially for shorter term borrowing. The cost of capital would be high for us to go out to a private market to get lending to hold us over for an undetermined amount of time. And so that's why I would recommend an interfund loan from ourselves to fund the project.
I think it goes without saying, if there's anything the board can do to at all help make sure that the conditions are great to land that grant, we would be more than happy to help with that.
I'm glad you said that. We may be sending the board a request for some letters of support for this grant.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to turn that up. Yes.
So thank you very much. And it's exciting. We're anxious to see the finished product. So, but thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, administrative reports, superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot in there, and I'm happy to take any questions about any portion of our administrative reports.
Everybody looked at their board books, all the hard work going on, all the different, any questions? All right, with that, we're going to turn to action items. Up first is the approval of resolution 25001, National Hispanic Heritage Month. And one of our favorites is back up to join us.
Goodness. Thank you. So in your board packet, you have the cover sheet, which gives some of the background of the Heritage Month. A lot of times that's been included within the resolution itself, but the background pieces of it are the consistent elements. But we want to make sure that we also continue to educate as well. The resolution ends with information related to some sources, some additional notes and places to learn more information. And we would encourage, of course, our staff and community, as well as our board, to dive deeper into that. I'm presenting the board resolution related to the proclamation of September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. So whereas Latino, Latinx, or Hispanic Americans have significantly contributed to all areas of American society, including science, art, music, education, sports, and public service. And whereas these communities have bravely served the United States throughout its history, both in times of peace and conflict, Whereas in 1968, Congress authorized President Lyndon B. Johnson to proclaim National American Heritage Week, which was expanded to a month-long celebration in 1988 by President Ronald Reagan. And whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is observed annually from September 15th to October 15th in recognition of the independence days of several Latin American countries, as well as to honor the broader cultural and historic contributions of Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx communities. And whereas the Hispanic cultural heritage in the Pacific Northwest dates the 18th century, marking a long-standing connection between these communities and the region. And whereas the achievements of Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx Americans inspire all who seek freedom and opportunity in the United States. And whereas during this month, Americans celebrate the diverse traditions, ancestry, and unique experiences of those whose heritage originates from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central, and South America. And whereas it is essential to honor and celebrate the integral role of Hispanic, Latino, or Latinx individuals in American society, and to promote their continued contributions to our country, state, cities, and schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the members of the Northwest Regional Education Service District Board of Directors that the board recognizes September 15th to October 15th, 2024 as the National Hispanic Heritage Month for Northwest Regional Education Service District. During this time, the board encourages all members of our community to come together to recognize, commemorate, and celebrate the cultural, professional, educational, and civic contributions of Hispanic peoples, past and present. Students, staff, and community members are encouraged to study Hispanic culture and history, recognizing the contributions of Hispanic communities in their own lives, and to strive for appreciation and inclusion year-round to celebrate our past and brighten our future as an education service district.
I move that we approve resolution 25001 as presented.
Russell, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve resolution 25-001. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? With that, the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank
for your
you.
presentation.
Great work.
Next up is our August financial report, as well as budget committee member, but we'll talk about the financial report first.
So for our financial report this month, it's very early in the year, so I'd be startled if there was like substantial deviations occurring. And so we don't have too much to talk about, which is always a good thing when it comes to a financial report. I did want to talk through a little bit the change in format for this year. So if you look at page 3 of this agenda item, you'll see the numbers. And when we're looking at the general fund table, for example, the first column with a gray heading now says year-to-date percentage of actual. And so what that figure is, because we have all of our actuals for last year, we can say at this time of the year last year, this is how much of what ended up being the actual had been received in revenue or expended in expenditures. And then that's next to now what is the current year's year-to-date percentage of budget. And so what this does, I'm hoping it'll be a little bit more helpful than us showing our prior year-to-date actual versus our current year-to-date actual, because this helps us understand if the numbers we budgeted are accurate and reasonable. And so as an example, the very first line, beginning fund balance, you can see as of this period last year, we had received 100% of our beginning fund balance, or we had posted 100% of our beginning fund balance. And this year it's only 89%. On that particular line item, we only transact one time a year. It's at the beginning of the year. This is the amount. And so we know right off the bat that our total resources on that line item are about 11% lower than what we budgeted. And so we have to make course corrections if that's a problem. It turns out this isn't a problem. You may remember after we did initial revenue projections last year, revenue projections happened very early in the budget process because we budget our expenditures to those revenue projections. Later in the spring, we asked the board if we could use some of our fund balance from that fund to pay the debt service payment on the Alaclec building, which was $1.3 million. So we had that initial estimate of 6.2. After that 1.3, it would have been 4.9. We ended up at 5.5. And so we don't actually have a problem in real life. It's just if this was happening all the way down in every revenue assumption, we would say there's a problem here. We really overestimated revenue. And then when we're looking at expenditures, we see that those are performing about the same as last year. Do we have a problem? Because our expenditures are on pace, but our revenues aren't. So that's what we do with those two columns. So those are the things that I'll be focusing on throughout the year. What I will say is the challenge of doing it this way, there's no perfect way to present financials, but the challenge, the limitation present with doing it this way is that when we use an accrual basis of accounting, a modified accrual basis of accounting, which means that when we receive revenues, let's say 3 months from now, that belong to July or August, they're going to get posted into July or August. And so when we're looking at that prior year actual to date, it includes revenues that are received later in the year that belong to that month. Whereas in our current year to date, we don't know. We don't have those revenues that belong to this month yet. So it is limited. I think it's less limited than what we were doing last year because whenever we have a new grant or a significant change to a grant or anything like that, so I'm speaking especially of the special revenue fund, the way we were presenting last year doesn't help us analyze, if we see expenditures are $3 million higher period to date, but we got a new grant that gave us $3 million for that period, that's not a problem, but it looks like a problem. It looks like we're way outpacing expenditures. So we'll try this. I always love feedback. If this isn't helping, if it's just confusing things, let's look at that. I will say I don't expect this particular format to yield a ton of value until we get to the second half of the year, when we have more experience actually posted. When we've only posted 0.03% of our local revenues, for example, because we don't get property taxes until November, it doesn't really tell us much about what's going on there. So that's the main change for this year is just format so far and hopefully through the whole year. That will be the only major change that we discuss. Any questions?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the financial report. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. I'm sure we'll be discussing this more further as we better comprehend, but thank you. So now Budget Committee.
Okay, so on the budget committee, we have an interesting situation. 6 of our terms expired on June 30th of last year. And our policy says that we will stagger the terms so that roughly a third of the committee terms out each year. And that's based on local budget law. Local budget law says that that's what we need to do. And there's not really an exception for that. It also says that when you do an annual budget, you need to have 3-year terms. And there's not an exception for that. In this, I am proposing that we do, 3 terms, 3 2-year terms, and 3 3-year terms. We have 2 budget committee members who have volunteered to do the 2-year terms for us. I did check with the Department of Administrative Services to make sure that this is okay, because there is no provision to deviate in local budget law from the 3-year term. But again, there's no exception to deviate from terming roughly a third of the committee every year. And so somewhere along the way we got off and we had 6 people term out at the same time, and we need to get ourselves back on track. The Department of Administrative Services said, essentially, yeah, you're right, there's no provision in the law for that, but you got to do something. So this is what I'm proposing, is that we do 3 2-year terms and 3 3-year terms. And then we have 4 committee members whose terms will end at this June of 2025. So we'll have those 4 expire, then we'll have 3 expire the next year, 3 expire the next year, and then back to 4 3 3 ongoing with 3-year terms after that. So we do have 5 committee members who are willing to come back and serve another term. I think with the amount of financial turmoil we've experienced, having some continuity on the budget committee would be helpful. But of course, we don't have to do this. Our policy doesn't really lay out what has to be done. It just says that the board will appoint 3 people each year, or 10 budget committee members total. So with the board's blessing, I would like to propose that we continue with the 5 budget committee members who are willing to continue, 2 of them at 2-year terms, 3 at a 3-year term, and then we will have 1 2-year term vacant for the board to fill at a later meeting.
Okay, that was clear as mud. And does anybody have any questions?
I move to appoint the recommended candidates to the budget committee for the recommended terms.
Chris is on it. I second. Me too.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the new budget committee members in their staggered terms. Is there any discussion? I mean, my biggest concern was if we were just following our own policies, but since our policies do not dictate, that doesn't seem to be an issue. So any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay? Abstentions? With that, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, board.
There you go. All right, next order of business. Valerie to talk to us about OSBA nominations.
Thank you, Board Chair. This item is a OSBA board and or legislative committee nomination. So if any of you have a nomination you would like to make of each other to either of those, either the board for OSBA or the legislative committee, this is your chance to do so. We have some hard copies of those nomination forms on the dais with the board chair. So if you have any nominations, we'd like to hear that now.
You're on the Legislative Policy Committee, but your term's not, is your term up? So you're not, so. Okay.
I think the only other thing I would add here is that you can nominate people who are not on other boards. So you can like literally get like spiteful, mean, or, complimentary, however you want to look at that, with other people too.
Maureen.
Yeah, so Valerie, and Chair, you may know this, do we have openings? I know that we just had last year 3 board members from Washington County start. So I just wanted to check because there were resignations, terms, all those fun things almost that Jordan just addressed. So do we have a full slate coming back?
I don't know for an absolute fact, but I do know the one opening that we have, the person, because again, the staggering got off because of resignations and that kind of thing. So they will have to fill out the paperwork, and I hear that they are going to fill out so we don't have any one that it's absolutely open, but it's still open to anybody that wants to. It's not a done deal just because there's someone in there now. If there's someone that is at all interested in serving on the board or the Legislative Policy Committee, they are more than welcome to fill out one of these forms. And then I think it's probably in November, we will vote as a board, whoever does put their names together for.
I believe that is correct. The timeline is included in your packet as well.
So if anyone's interested, I have the forms and we'd be more than happy, Maureen or I both could talk to you about joining the board and the legislative policy. Right. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. With that, our regular business is done. Are there any board comments this evening? Paul, we hope you're feeling better.
Thank you. Yeah, I am. I just lingering, but thank you.
I would just like to say that on the September 11th, that we remember all the first responders and all the people whose lives were taken from us 24 years ago. Let me not forget that it is September 11th. And just wearing my other hat, I have a lot of cross pollination that I do with the ESD, and one of those is I am on the Children's Institute Board, and they are an advocacy group for early learning. And a lot of folks that worked for the ESD works for Children's Institute, so we have a very strong partnership. And I just want all of us to be aware, the board is welcome October 1st at Cornelius Elementary School. They're going to be doing an early student success process. So people can come in and see teachers and see what the early success programs look like. And you're more than welcome. I will be attending, but you're more than welcome as board members if you want to see early learning in process at Cornelius Elementary School.
Will you send out the
Yes,
invite?
yes, I can send out the invite. So with that, any other comments? All right, with that, our next meeting is, our next general board session is October 9th at 6 p.m. At the OMEC Training Center in Scappoose. And with that, we are adjourned.